Hey, what's going on? This video is going to show you how to build your Koni Heavy Track front shock into your front struts for your Gen 3 Montero. That's 2001 to 2006. And the part number for this Heavy Track front is 822505. Now, these shocks are adjustable, but this video is not going to cover the adjustment procedure for that. There's plenty of other videos out there on how to adjust Koni shock absorbers, and we have one linked on the Luso Overland website on this shock page. What we're doing is we're building the front struts. So if you're doing it yourself, or even if you just want to give your mechanic a heads up on how to do it, because a lot of them aren't very familiar with Monteros, you're going to get a spring perch in the box with your front shocks, and there's a circlip right here, and that's what this is going to sit on. Now, I did take a little bit of sandpaper, just like 10 seconds, just clean up this inside edge, because there were a little bit of leftover like burrs and machining in there that kind of kept it from wanting to slide down easily, and I didn't want to scratch any of this up. So your spring perch goes on first, and I like to line this slope with the eye of the shock. It doesn't actually matter like if you installed it like this or like this. I don't think it's going to affect ride quality, but just for aesthetics, I like to have it look like this when it's on the vehicle, where you can see the termination of the spring on one side. Then the next step is take your lower pad and put that onto the perch. Now the lower pad, this is the OEM rubber one. If I was doing this for real, I would not be using this, because as you can see, it's got a pretty big hole in it. These do get worn out over time. So we sell the rubber ones, the OEM rubber. We have brand new ones. And then we also sell the poly ones from Polytough. And that goes for all the rubber components that we talk about. If it's OEM and it's a rubber component, we sell it. And then occasionally we do have options to go with Polytough as well. So perch, lower spring pad, next comes your spring. And if we were assembling this for real, then we would need to compress this spring. But I'm just gonna show you like basically the order of operations on how we're doing this to put it together, but not actually compressing the spring. So spring goes on. You can see you want to put the end of the spring up against the wall of the slope there on the pad. And then with your Koni shock, you're going to get this little goodie bag with some hardware, and you're going to take this plastic washer. Doesn't matter which way it goes on. There's no right side or wrong side. And you're going to put that over the shock shaft, and it'll sit on top of the shock body, and that's going to help protect the top seal of the shock. Next thing with the Koni shocks is you're going to need a bump stop, or a damper, or a bellows, or a dust boot, or a rubber help. Whatever you're calling this, you're going to need to use one of these. Now this is an old 15-year-old one that was on a strut that I took apart. If it's still in okay shape, you could reuse it, but if you do need new ones, again, we have them in stock. There's the part number. And then there are a couple aftermarket companies that make generic shock bump stops. We tested out every single one we can get our hands on, and a lot of them don't fit at all or work with the Koni Heavy Tracks. So again, check out the description on our website on the Koni Heavy Track page, and we'll have links to the two that we found that we thought were the best out of the aftermarket ones, and I'll also do a separate video on that. All right, after we've got the bump stop on there, you're going to take your metal cup from when you took apart your original strut, and that's going to go on upside down all the way down to on top of the bump stop. And then you're going to take this bushing with this metal sleeve inserted in it, and it's going to go like this. Then you're going to take your top hat. Oh, the next step is the top hat. And with the top hat, you can usually just reuse yours unless it's broken or rusted really bad, or the threads on one of the studs are messed up. But usually just reuse these. We do sell these aftermarket ones, but pretty rare. You're going to take your upper coil spring pad, and that's going to go on the inside of the top hat. And just one thing I want to point out is the OEM coil, it terminated on the top with just the standard cutoff there on the round coil. it would look like that on the top. But a lot of aftermarket ones have this drawn out flat top coil, and that's not gonna sit or line up real nicely on your old pads because they're gonna be super indented with the round top coil. So in that case, I would recommend getting new rubber OEM upper pad. Anyways, that's gonna go on next. And lining this up is really important also to get the fitment right without fighting with it when you're putting it on the vehicle. You want to take a stud, it doesn't matter which one, but you want to make sure that one stud is lined up with the flat portion of the shock. So you're going to just kind of imagine a line coming down from the stud, going down and lining up right here with this flat portion of the shock. So don't line it up with the eye, line it up with the flat. Again, it doesn't matter which stud, they're symmetrical. Now, if we were doing this for real, we would be compressing this spring so that the shock shaft would come out through here. And then we'd need to obviously like bolt it down and everything, but that's not happening. So just imagine that. And then you're gonna take this bushing, it's gonna go down, the shaft is still gonna be coming out, and then you're gonna take your OEM washer from your original strut. That's gonna go like that. There is a bevel to this, so you're gonna make sure that it goes up like a cup, not like that, but like that. And then lastly, you're going to want to take your new nylock nut that comes with your Koni Heavy Track shock. That's gonna go on there and torque it to 33 foot-pounds. If you have trouble torquing it, that's because the whole shock shaft might want to spin. There is a place right there at the top of the shock shaft for you to put like a hex key to hold it and keep it from spinning. And then what you can do is you can use I like to use a crow's foot wrench to get in here inside of the top hat. So you'll have a hex key coming over that shock shaft, and you can get in here with a crow's foot wrench to tighten up and put the torque on the top nut. All right, now let's do it again real quick without the spring on there, just so you can see a little easier what's going on. Starting with your shock, you want to take your spring perch, that goes on. I like to have the spring perch, the nook lined up with the eye of the shock. Next, I'm going to take the lower coil pad, either rubber OEM or Polytough is going to go on next. Then from our Koni hardware bag, we're going to take this plastic washer. That goes on just like that. So at this point, you put your coil spring on and your coil spring compressors would be at the ready. But we're just moving past that so you can see what's going on. We're going to take our shouldered washer, throw that on there. That comes in the Koni hardware kit. Next, your OEM bump stop / damper will go on. It locks in like that. Then you're going to take your metal cup, reuse that upside down. Then you're going to take bushing with the sleeve, the lower shock bushing, going to go like that. Next, you're going to take your top hat with the upper spring pad in it. That's going to go on next, sit right on that bushing. Then you're going to take this bushing and arrange it like that. And then you're going to take your washer up like a cup, new nylock nut. These are only meant to be used once. So that comes in your Koni hardware kit, and you torque it to 33 foot-pounds. And yeah, before you do torque it, make sure that you have one stud lined up down the side of the shock with the flat side. And that is going to do it, you guys. How to put together the Koni Heavy Track shock. And honestly, this procedure is very similar regardless of what shock brand you have. If it was Bilsteins or KYBs, it's going to be really similar, just a few little differences. But that's it. Thank you.